All right, now that the cameras are rolling, I'll officially call the July 24th, 2019 work session to order at 7:09 p.m. I apologize, we're running a couple of minutes behind. Board was meeting executive session on a personnel matter. I'd like the minutes to reflect that we have all but Mr. Quinn this evening. Mr. Quinn is traveling for business. We have approval of the minutes of June 26 and would entertain a motion of approval for those minutes.
I'll move. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion on those minutes? Seeing none. Those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, those minutes are approved. Lisa, thank you as always for those. We have received most of our monthly reports in. I think we're missing a couple of areas. Mr. 8 possibly. So double check that if you wouldn't mind. And I can't chat with her, but we were just a few minutes ago, personnel, but I'm sure they'll be in by week's end, and we'll have everything right up to snuff. So thank you very much in advance for that. We have no public hearings this evening. We do have a guest, and we're going to start off with a guest, Dr. Jack Howitt, for discussion regarding development at 1211 Empire Boulevard. Dr. Howitt is not new to this board. We've had a number of meetings. Jeff Sudol from Pastoral Associates is with Dr. Howitt. And I guess I'll let Mr. Costello add any additional words before we get started.
I think you've covered it, Mr.
All right, very good. So with that, Jess, Dr. Howitt, the floor is yours. And Jim, did you? Oh, you've got everything.
Yep.
Perfect. I should have known better.
All right, I will jump in here, and thank you for the introduction, Mr. Supervisor. I just took a peek at the most recent traffic study we did and noticed that the original date on it was back in 2013. So obviously this project has been kicked around for quite some time. I believe that this board, as well as other boards in the town, are quite familiar with it. The property, as you know, is on the south side of Empire Boulevard on Wilbur Track Road. And it's a property that Mr. Howitt has put a lot of time into since acquiring it several years ago. Most recently, or I should say, maybe not most recently, but several years ago, we brought forward a townhome project that basically proposed the development of townhomes in the R120 zone portion of the land. I'll just point that out quickly here. What you see here in black, including this park area up here, not park, but this open space area up here. This is all Mr. Howitt's property, and the zoning line between R120 and the LaSalle Landing District comes here. So we spent about 2 years working on the extension of Wilbur Track Road into a new dedicated roadway with a cul-de-sac that was going to have 32 townhomes on its own individual lots. While working through that process, there was some input from the neighbors up here who we were pretty close to. Some were in favor of it, some not as much. As we began to do more and more due diligence, what we found is based on the historical use of the site, with there being some dumping there and not having the best soils, is essentially with all the infrastructure that we had to build to basically make a dedicated roadway and everything that goes along with that, in conjunction with the soil mitigation that we would have to do for just the 32 units. The financial model wasn't exactly making the most sense. We were also disturbing the vast majority of the entire lot. So what we've recently done is explored, essentially taking all that density and land disturbance that used to be here and moving it all forward into a single 3-story structure with the associated parking at the front of the parcel. So these were always intended to be rentals, but now the intention is to have one much smaller project in terms of land area, existing in this portion in the LaSalle Landing District, which would be a lot closer, obviously, to Empire Boulevard, and certainly tabling for the foreseeable future anyway, any disturbance or development in this back area up the hill, which obviously results in far less potential impact and line of sight issues with a lot of these neighbors just to our east.
And just to follow up, Jess, that application is still currently tabled before the planning board.
Correct. But if, this board thought that this project at least looked promising, we would probably pull that, like I said, basically table that for the foreseeable future, and then just proceed with this project. It's certainly not a bait and switch where we're going to do this project and then come back a year later and say, oh, the townhomes are back. That's certainly not our intention. What we're really trying to do here is cluster the density to try to make a lot less land disturbance, a lot less site infrastructure costs, but still achieve and serve what we believe is a needed market with our 1 and 2 bedroom type units. One of the first things that we did do when we decided to explore this change was we hired SRF, who has a lot of history in the area, going all the way back to 2013 to do an update to the traffic study. What the results of that traffic study found was that actually the existing conditions today and also the future condition with our, it's a 60 unit building there is a left turn lane warranted on Empire Boulevard. And I think the residents have expressed that in the past, that they would love to have a turn lane there, because if you're coming from Webster, you come down Empire Boulevard. If you want to take a left on Wilbur Track Road, you really don't have a whole lot of protection for those vehicles that are coming down the hill pretty quickly. So it's warranted now. Of course, it's not planned to be constructed. The DOT does have plans for, I didn't get me started with DOT. Yeah. For making improvements to Empire Boulevard, but that does not include the construction of a left turn lane. That report was then submitted to the state DOT, who agreed with the findings of that report and said in a letter that Mr. Costello printed out for us this evening that yes, a left turn lane is warranted, again, not just for the project, but based on existing conditions, and we would support you constructing that left turn lane and extending the taper back to where the culvert is now, which we certainly think would be a significant improvement over the current conditions, and certainly make this project make a lot more sense. There's not, and there never was, nor is there now, enough traffic generated off of Wilbur Track Road to generate a signal warrant or enough volumes for a traffic signal. We're not even 10% of the way there. You need to get to volumes of 120 to 200 cars during the peak hour on that side or Minor Street, and we're down closer to 30 cars. So we're not quite there. But I do think the left turn lane does make a whole lot of sense. I think that ever since the turn lanes were installed up the hill for the apartment project there, that's worked out pretty well, even though it's a dicey traffic area. But we certainly think that makes a lot of sense. So that's essentially what we're proposing to do. We haven't spent a whole lot of time and money yet developing building elevations. We kind of wanted to get to this point, come before this board and say, we've kind of rethought our game plan here. We think it might be a little bit more palatable project to really significantly reduce our footprint, kind of cluster all that density down at the bottom of the hill, kind of away from those single-family homes, and then get the DOT to agree with our proposed traffic mitigation. So, Dr. Howe, if you want to add anything to that, it's not a long explanation, but hopefully an informative one.
Sounds like a guy that just came from the Catskills.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, sir?
I said his report sounds like somebody that just came out of the Catskills from an earlier meeting today.
I've been driving a lot
by
last
the
few weeks.
change in the accent.
Yeah.
I am from there originally. People make fun of the way I say coffee and water.
So it's 3 stories?
Yes,
You're
it is.
saying 3 stories.
3 stories.
And so like K2 Brewery is 1 story. And
Right.
everything around there is pretty much 1 story. That'd be standing up way high above everything else.
Well, the grade kind of goes down behind
Does it?
K2.
That's
I would say, I think the apartments up the hill there they're also 3 stories, but they're up on top of the hill on top of a garage, so they actually look like 4 stories coming down Empire Boulevard heading eastbound. But, that hill, there's so much topography, we've done some drone studies and site investigation that, the peak of this roof still sits well below the elevation up here. So, if you were standing in these folks' backyard, you would look right out over top of this thing and never see it unless you actually kind of went to the edge of their lawn and looked down during the winter when the leaves weren't on the trees. But other than that, there's really hardly any visibility of it.
Would that go right where K2's doing their parking right now? That road that kind of goes towards the old...
I'm not sure.
Or-
Oh, the pump station road, or?
No, Dr. Howitz allowed them to
Yeah.
park along along a portion of Wilbur Tract Road? Yes, the answer is yes, it
Yeah.
is in that area.
Yeah.
How close to Wilbur Tract Road is the building proposed to be just at this point in time? It looks pretty close.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of, because this model's built in 3D, the roof line kind of can be a little bit deceiving. But, you know, right here at this corner would be about 30 feet from the edge of pavement. The way that this program rendered the road also shows this road to be much more robust than it actually is in real life, obviously. You know, it doesn't have the lanes and the
Pretty
gutters and
narrow.
shoulders.
Yeah.
But, you know, we would certainly, you know, still plan on making the necessary improvements for the limits of our project.
So originally, when we talked about apartments down here, there were two buildings and approximately 36 units, if I recall correctly. And so now we're looking at a total of 60 units.
Yeah, originally it was going to be, I think you were right, 36 apartment units at the bottom of the hill, plus the 32 townhomes
And
up
the
on top of the
and the
hill, so the
townhomes.
total was around 70. Those townhomes certainly were much larger, you know, would cater more to families, more traffic, you know, 2 and 3 bedrooms, whereas we're more 1 and 2. So in terms of actual density and number of beds and bodies in the project, you know, this is even less than, you know, the deficit in units that we were talking about when you had them up.
Now, bringing the project proposed, you know, closer, obviously closer to Empire Boulevard, how far are you from the shoreline of the bay?
Well, right where the cove comes in to the culvert, we're probably about 220 feet.
So given what most likely will be happening with the IJC, what are your plans then?
Well, the elevation difference is significant to the point where we are 15 feet above, you know, we're like 265 as opposed to, you know, the 249 water levels that the IGC.
255?
Yeah, I mean, right now
They're proposing
they're
250.
proposing, on the table, they're proposing for the water height to be 255.2.
Yeah, we're still above that. I wasn't aware of that. That would be
Yeah.
insane.
Well,
Empire Boulevard's gone.
I won't disagree with you, the fact that it would be insane, but 255.2 essentially covers a chunk of Empire Boulevard. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, obviously,
Not to
from our
mention
end,
houses in Webster and Arundel.
in Greece, along
Greece,
Mere Drive
destroy Greece.
and what have you. So there is a series of 4 meetings.
The ready meetings?
The ready meetings. The
Yeah.
second one is scheduled for next Wednesday. I missed the first one
was
only
today,
because the state was 2 weeks ago.
I thought there was one today in Wayne County.
And I missed it because the state, in their infinite wisdom, believed this was either Arundecoit or Webster, and that Penfield had no access along the bay. So I did, with apologies, get invited to the second, third, and fourth meeting, so we'll kind of learn together. But it does, you know, because the first thing that I think of is we've got 2 pump stations down in that area. We've got Empire Boulevard, that is, the water's right on the edge of Empire Boulevard today, that little state cutout. And then you think about, you know, the tail, how far does that push upstream and things. So that has been something new, at least, that has come to the table here recently.
Yeah, we're far enough up the hill that I don't think that, I mean, it's certainly something we take under consideration and ensure that we are above it, but I don't think it's to the point where it makes the parcel undevelopable in any way. You know, we already are, you know, higher than that elevation, I believe, for the most part. But that's insane.
So if you would, either Jess or Dr. Howard, if you wouldn't mind, you spoke a little bit about the townhomes, and that you'd be willing to table the townhomes for now, but is there thought, you know, if this project were to go forward, is there still some intentions to actually build the townhomes 2, 4, 10 years down the road? Or is there some other discussions to be had?
I mean, right now, we're taking them completely off the table. We're no longer designing them, analyzing them, or plan to build them. I think we would stop short of saying we're never going to build them, but certainly we have no intention of moving forward with that project.
So the core road wouldn't be redone, that would just,
Well, only up along the frontage of our project, but not all the way to the back.
right.
Which actually, some of the residents said they didn't want it
No,
redone.
yeah.
Well, it certainly is something that has been controversial. People like the idea, some people like the idea that if a tree came across the road and you couldn't get emergency vehicles up there and somebody was ill or there was a house on fire, it would be nice to have a second means of egress. Because if you think about it, all the way back, to Reginald Circle, the only way you get back there today is off of Browncroft Boulevard. And if I'm in Reginald Circle and I've got a house burning, or I've got somebody that's got a cardiac event, and I'm waiting, and oh, by the way, there's a tree across the road, and they can't get to me. So it's been concerns on both parts to open it or not to open it. So yeah, I mean, it's probably been a 50-50, or at least with different people that we've heard from, it's been 50-50.
Is the road a dedicated road or private road?
Wilbur Track
Yes.
Road is private, we were proposing the dedication of it at that time. but it would still stay
To your
private.
project limits?
Right,
Okay. How?
under easement, I believe.
Okay. How are we proposing that plows would turn around, or plows would go down Wilbur Track to a certain point, and then it would hit from dedicated to private, they would stop, and then they've got to loop around and then come
Well,
back.
I think with
down.
this project, being that it is rental, we wouldn't necessarily, well, I guess we'd have to talk about how far we dedicate it. And, we haven't advanced the design too much, but there's no reason why we couldn't put, a turnaround somewhere that made sense, that could be coordinated with the highway department.
Yeah, just something to think about.
For sure.
Or maintain it private and just improved, and
Right.
with the responsibility of the apartment complex to take care of it to a point to the end of the apartment property. That's an additional alternative.
Yeah, in that case, there wouldn't be a burden on the town's DPW.
Your 60 units, are you looking at a proportion of 2-bedroom, 1-bedroom?
Yeah, we haven't determined the exact
Think that-
proportion, but ones and twos,
Okay.
you know.
And Jess, I take it you haven't really dived into architecture of it or anything like that yet, right?
No, not yet. I mean, we're well aware that, there is a certain kind of architectural fabric that's been established with the apartment project that's got a nautical theme.
Right.
We wouldn't copy them. We'd certainly look to, fit in with this district.
And I've encouraged both Dr. Howitt and Jess really not to get into any level of details at this point until, we have kind of a path forward. Because I'm just always concerned about spending of money that may not be needed or necessary until a path forward being established. So I think that's part of the discussion tonight is where do we go from here? Is this an acceptable alternative? Is this too intense? What are our thoughts about the townhouse project, going into a kind of a hold pattern, but does that only potentially cause problems down the road if they were to be built out? I mean, it's just so if they go forward in the future, there's 32 plus 60. That's 92 units at that location. So I think those are all the things that we've got to make sure we're comfortable with and next steps.
Right.
And the townhome project never received its final approval, which is why it's still on the agenda.
Yes.
So it's not, we don't have an as of right, ready to build a project where we could, like I said, pull a fast one and go build it. It'd still be subject to all, updated engineering reports.
Sure.
Because of the presence of this now. But again, right now financially it doesn't work, so there's no way that would happen.
What's the status of the property up above that is going to be given to the county parks?
I mean, that was something that, there's not a whole lot of use for it for us, so,
Right.
Should this move forward, those are still discussions that, we can continue to have. We don't really have any plans for it.
I think at one point, Dr. Howard, as he was talking about the townhomes and the potential for the apartments, he was talking about that knob being, consideration for dedication to the county.
Right.
There's 3.5 acres that's there that several years back, the county had agreed to accept into the park system. So certainly that's still on the table.
So we've got a lot of moving parts here that we need to digest, I think, and take the new information into account. It's very helpful to know what your intentions are now.
Gotta go down.
The lake level
Yeah.
is a concern just because it's a concern for 3 municipalities.
I'd be a lot more concerned if I was a single-family homeowner in the bay,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
whose yards already flooded at 249.
But it's supposed to be our new normal. Governor Cuomo said it's just the new normal we have to accept, so there are some concerns.
Okay. Think about it.
So are you,
Tony, I'd like to just think about it for a little bit.
Yeah, there's no action needed tonight.
No.
well, I think it is on, you're right, it's Dr. Howard's here for, discussion as a guest and what have you. And so certainly, the board can, take this and digest this and take a look at any additional information and then look to have as an action item at a future work session.
Would it be good to have like a stakes out where exactly you're envisioning it? Because, when I'm thinking about it, I'm just envisioning, it just seems so big for that area, but maybe if I looked at it in person, it wouldn't look as dramatic, I don't know. Could you do that? Have stakes put out there just showing, identify
Yeah, we can
where it
put
would
stakes
go?
out there. I can also, provide the topo, which shows exactly what the elevation is in that area.
So, what is the easiest and what I'll call the most cost-effective
Right.
way to do that, Jess?
So you don't spend a lot of money.
Put the stakes in the ground.
Well, either put stakes in the ground or, show a map, with the topo.
We already have the topo, that doesn't cost anything, and the stakes are next to nothing, so there's really little expense
All right.
there.
So if we were to move in that direction, and then if you were to reach out to Jim or Mark, so that, because my sensitivity is I don't want you to stake it and then have a couple of weeks go by and have, someone play with the stakes and
Right.
what have you. I'd like to make that window very tight, within a couple of days, do it on a,
Could run down there, take a look.
and take a look at that.
Okay.
And avoid a weekend. I'm
Do you
just
have
thinking.
something that shows the profile against the mountain?
You did that for us, you did that for us with the
Yeah.
39 unit.
Yeah, we do have a lot of information that we can pull out and update, and
To make
if you
it
wanted to see that profile.
visually realistic as possible
Yeah.
would be helpful.
Yeah, so what we could do is if we ran a section from the cul-de-sac, I forget the name, what's it, Kilbourne? Was it?
No, Old West Falls Drive.
Oh, yeah. Kilbourne's where Dave Cox used to live. But from the cul-de-sac down the hill across our project, and then we could show in relation the various water levels on that profile too, which would, I think, maybe help.
We did do that, actually. As a matter of fact, Dr. Howard, Zach Nursinger, and I walked that entire area. There was one property, I think it was 27, where you could, just as you said, you had to look down and then kind of look over to the side. You could probably see it. I don't think anybody else on the street could have possibly seen it. And that brings me to my next question is, what was the rationale for moving it out away from the hill versus having the parking out in front and having the building closer to the hill?
Just in a lot of, current planning methodology, the parking behind the building is something, I think some of your, form-based mixed-use codes talk about that. I don't think it matters to us one way significantly.
I don't either. I just think that we were looking at those view sheds with the anticipation that the first apartment units were going to be closer to the base of the
Tucked
hill.
into the,
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
And I mean, I don't know if that's good or bad. I mean, maybe it's good to keep it away from the base of the
you know, if
hill.
there's concerns about the proximity to Wilbur Track Road and, you know, maybe tucking it away behind K2, you know, if everyone, you know, kind of likes that approach, I have no problem with swapping the two.
I don't know which is better. I mean, you'll just have to look at what's
Right.
the most effective for you. But then the other issue is K2. K2 is having some parking issues. Are you concerned that they're going to be starting to encroach upon your parking or your residents? And how do you deal with that?
Well, like
We'll
any
have to
park
define
project, there's
it.
enforcement, right? Point that's needed. Take bats and break your windows
Hopefully they'll resolve that
for their
issue.
cars.
Or coupons for K2.
Yeah. But, you know, I think if we, you know, do move forward, there is a certain level of parking analysis that warrants discussion because, you know, the standard parking code, I think is 2.25 per unit or 2.5 per unit, or straight 2 per unit.
Yeah.
Anyway, when you're talking with a lot of ones, you know, and only one person living there, you know, it might be a good discussion where, yes, we have extra capacity, or we can land bank some of that parking, or, you know, don't necessarily need to build it all out if we're not really gonna be using it.
You're not doing any at-grade parking under the building as you did on the other sites
No.
across the street? It's all going to be open parking?
Yeah, that would make the building a lot more expensive.
It brings it down a floor.
okay.
Well, I would concur with what Andy says in terms of, I think it's, you know, we could take a fresh look at it now as a new proposal and vet it out that way.
Other questions, board, that you have, maybe for Dr. Howard or for Jess? Staff, any additional items that we did not discuss that we should enter into the record?
I think at this point in time, you just have to make a decision with the planning board as to where you want to go in terms of continuing to table that application, or if you want to just ask for it to be discharged off their agenda at this point in time, or if you want to hold out for a while until you know where you're going.
I might encourage that we hold that as a status
Until we
quo
know,
until,
yeah.
you know, we talk about next steps.
So I'm gonna get you section, cross-section with elevations, topo, building stakeout. Is there anything else that would help? Okay.
No, and I know you've done a lot of that already with the other ones.
No, then we'll
It'll be helpful.
we'll get together with the
Consider-
team and consider swapping.
I was going to say, do that swap. Is there any benefit or?
Right, to see which is best.
Makes sense to do that. Dr. Howard, Jess, any additional questions, comments at this point for the board?
No, I appreciate you having us.
Yeah.
You want me to leave any of this, or you?
So what I would like to do is, if we could leave, or at least keep that, do you have it electronically? I'm sure you do.
Of course.
Is that,
That's better.
that would even be better, Jess, if you
Okay.
wouldn't mind pushing that to Mark and/or Kaz.
Yeah,
That
that'd be
would be
better.
great.
Can you send that out to us?
Absolutely, I will.
Yeah.
It'd be better for us, because we can print them here too if
Right.
we need to, it's not a
So,
problem.
Yeah, use the town money.
Yeah. Oh, don't worry, we'll
Save
charge you back
paper.
for it later.
Save paper.
Yeah, I'm
Great.
We have a significant paperless motto at our office. We're trying to
Yep.
paperless by
That would be good.
who knows when.
Good.
Full paper.
I know.
Thank you for coming in.
That'd be great. Thank you. Appreciate the follow-up on that.
Thank you.
Dr. Falone said to say hi to you. By
thank
the
you.
way, I ran into him today, and he wanted to make sure I gave you his best.
I thank you.
All right, very good.
I'm gonna send you guys these.
All right, we will move on to action items. And this evening, we have the one and the only Mr. Eric Tate, who is going to spend a few minutes with us talking about a whole host of different items. So, Mr. Tate, thanks, Jess. Mr. Tate, let's kick off with the Harris Whalen Playground replacement project.
Thank you.
Just back on July 12th, we did a bid opening for a playground. It would be a replacement for the existing playground at Harris Whalen Upper. The existing playground's a little over 20 years old. It's still in good shape, but it is aging, and because of the age of it, we're unable to get replacement parts for it, which is kind of starting to become an issue if and as things break. So,
Eric, I'm sorry, is this the one on top of the hill?
Yep, up by
next
the
to
open shelter.
Okay,
Yep.
perfect, all right.
Like I said, because of the age, it's becoming harder and harder to get replacement parts for it. And if and as things break, we've got to close off portions of the playground, which makes it unusable. So the idea is we've kind of been moving forward and trying to be proactive with our replacements. This is the next one to replace. And so we went out for bid. We did get 2 bids back, one from Titan Development, which the playground equipment itself is supplied by Game Time, and one from Miracle Recreation. They both met all of the required elements that we specified in the bid package. In fact, Titan Development and Game Time actually exceeded one of the requirements. We said that they needed to provide at least 3 climbing elements, and they actually included 4 within theirs. And we kind of broke it down for the cost for the actual equipment, the cost for the installation, and then the cost for the drainage, the border, and the safety mulch to go around it. When we totaled all of the numbers up, the kind of low bid ended up being with Titan Development and Game Time for a total of $62,540. We had budgeted for this within our Parks Department budget for this year. They are actually the same company that did the playground at Greenwood Park for us last year.
And this is, this bid is within the budget?
Yep. Yep. Yeah. Also pass these.
And with the Greenwood project, I don't recall any problems time-wise
No,
or work-wise?
they did a great job with it. Gotten a lot of compliments from it, so comfortable with their work. As part of the bid package, they provided us some sketches of the overall layout of the playground that they would install, showing the size, the orientation, with some kind of 3D renderings. And they just happen to use the color schemes that we used at Greenwood, but those would be, we can pick and choose whatever colors we want for each item.
The size they propose, how does it compare to what's currently, the current footprint
We
that's there?
we measured the existing footprint of what the border with all the safety mulch is, and that was part of the bid specs, is saying this is what it needs to fit within. This is kind of the maximum size because of the proximity with the open shelter and the water tower next door.
But it's not significantly smaller than the
No.
structure that's
No.
there now?
No.
And if I recall, Eric, our responsibility is to give them a clean slate. So
Yep.
we'll pop,
So our-
like we did with Greenwood.
Yep, our responsibility, we'll pull the existing playground equipment out, remove scrape up the mulch that's there, and they will kind of start from scratch.
Okay, I'm good.
Yeah.
Okay, is there a motion for that?
Move.
Moved by Andy, seconded by
I'll second the playground.
Linda. Okay, and will be for Titan Development Game Time for a total not to exceed $62,540 for replacement. So, any further discussion? Anything additional, Eric, on this item? Okay.
With removal of the current one, is it mostly metal now? I'm trying to think. Like, is
So
it-
a lot of it
Scrap.
it's
I am thinking scrap metal.
metal, with their rubber dipped coating on it. So, some of the things, the slides are all plastic. So there's no value in those, but a lot of it we would, we'll pull it out, but then it will go for scrap metal
Try to
value.
recycle the plastic.
And some of the parts that are in good enough shape that can be used as replacements for some of our other playgrounds, we will kind of try to set aside.
Yeah, there weren't too many of those pieces.
Not much,
And
but
when we did Greenwood, I would
Yep.
expect we're not going to have too many pieces
No.
here, just based on the age.
no.
So.
Eric, when do you anticipate it will be open to the public?
So we've tried to time this and wanted to get through 4th of July and everything with the Independence Day celebration at Harris Whalen Park. The intent that we put in with the bid specs is that construction would be late summer and that it would be open to the public early fall.
Great. Okay.
Sounds
All right.
good.
Very good. Great, thanks, Eric. Who moved and seconded? See no further discussion. Those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, very good. We'll move on to the next favorite topic, the one that has been kicking around for a while, then has been the project that has challenged all of us. So, Mr. Tate, if you will, this is the box athletic field at Rothfuss Park.
There should be a microphone at the very end. So I have a full set of plans if you want to take a look. I did staple a second copy to this. Okay, here's the extra for you. The second page actually is a smaller version showing the kind of proposed,
That's yours.
yeah.
You just need 2 pages, right?
Yep, so the second page actually shows what we actually decided upon for the final layout. So you can kind of see the cul-de-sac at the end of Rothfuss Park is on the right side of the page. At the bottom is the paved asphalt parking lot, and then to the left of the field will be the gravel parking lot, the closest to 5 Mile Line. The field looks like it's a little bit at askew. As we've kind of gone through it, we wanted to get it as close to a north-south orientation as possible to help with sun glare for anyone who's utilizing the field or playing, that they're not looking into the sun and getting hit by flying balls or other people running.
Sounds good.
So as part of it, and as Tony had mentioned, the project has evolved quite a bit from the original intent and what we were thinking. We wanted to make sure that we do it right and that it lasts and is able to be used by many for years to come.
Look at that.
Thanks.
So how much money do we have for it?
So when we originally started it, because of the thought and the idea, we did obtain a grant through DASNY that came for a total of $80,000, of which we used to buy the actual equipment for the boards, as well as what we will use for the turf and the installation of the turf. So what we then went out for with this bid was the installation of those boards, all of the site work, the foundation work, the drainage, and all of kind of the finish grading, asphalt pathways up to it, concrete work, as well as fencing at both ends of the field.
And drainage.
Yep. As you'll see, we did get 3 bids back. All 3 of the bids were equivalent in terms of everything that they provided to us that was required. Labella Associates assisted us with the actual bid package because of the scope of work and what's involved and their understanding and comfort with designing these types of fields. The lowest bid did come back by MRI Contractors in New York, which is also known as Monroe Roadways. They've done a number of similar projects. They did some work for Miracle Field, as well as the Bills practice field at St. John Fisher, the stadium there, and most of the site work at St. John Fisher. So they're experienced and
That sounds good.
So
equipped
does this
to complete
include then the installation of the box?
yes. Yep,
itself?
so they'll be doing all the site work, prepping the foundation wall for the boards to actually be anchored into, installing them, and then coordinating with the turf vendor that we've already contracted to get the turf installed.
But what was the budget for it originally, what you were estimating the cost to be?
Well,
No,
grant that we got
Yeah.
from Senator Punky from DASNY
That
was for $80,000.
80,000.
Yep.
That's correct.
The rest of the money would come out of,
Out of the rec trust fund.
Has Monroe Roadways done a box field before? I know you mentioned Fisher doesn't have a box field.
They've not done a box field, but really the difference is anchoring, I mean, setting the boards up, and which part of our contract, when we bought the boards themselves, the supplier will be coming out and helping assist and coordinating the installation of it. So really the only difference between the work that they've done and this is lining the boards up with the assistance of the supplier, drilling holes in and then bolting them down.
And so the supplier of the board material, then are they the ones that are responsible for like making sure it meets the specifications for the
Yep.
field?
Yep. So
For like US lacrosse or anything like that?
So it's not a regulation size field. It is meant for more the Penfield Youth Lacrosse Club, or if the soccer clubs wanted to use it.
We're not
because
having
it's
tournaments there, you're saying?
No.
We still may have some.
I mean,
Tournaments,
they
yeah.
could, but
It's not,
It's been required.
it's not a full
Championships.
regulation, it's not a full regulation field. Which bot fields, typically are, many are typically not.
And there's box regulations.
Right, that's correct.
The box- there's
There is.
You know,
box
this-
lacrosse
but both,
regulations. In a little bit.
I mean, as Labella has coordinated with the supplier and the vendor that sold us the boards, the sides itself, as well as the contractors, to make sure that the final design that they put together for the site work and the foundation and drainage would work with what we've already purchased.
Okay,
I'm good.
yep,
You good?
That's good.
All right, motion
move.
I'll second.
is moved and seconded. Further discussion, long time in the making. I think this will be a great addition to Rothus Park as part of our soccer program and lacrosse program as we move forward. Okay, so it's moved and seconded. Seeing no further discussion at this point. Those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The matter carries.
Tony, one quick
Absolutely,
question.
sure.
Eric, as with the first one, what are you looking at as far as like open to the public
So,
use?
glad you asked. So we, as part of the bid specifications, we put out that we wanted substantial completion in September and final completion early October.
Okay.
That sounds great.
The idea that, especially with lacrosse, if they want to play fall ball and get out there before the weather turns, that they'd be able to.
Right. And because we had such a lousy spring, we're hoping for a longer fall
Yes.
period. So,
I think we had tossed around the idea of kind of an opening celebration too in fall. It's a
Yep.
great time with
I know
lacrosse.
I know Penfield Youth Lacrosse would love to be a part
Yeah.
of some kind of opening
Yep.
ceremony.
Yep. Tim
Absolutely.
Master and Chris Bilo and I, in our conversations and coordination with the lacrosse club for just all of their field usage,
Both boys
that was
and
kind of
girls.
the intent, yep.
Yep.
That we had talked to them about, rough timeline and what we wanted to do, so
Yeah,
that they were
great.
supportive of that.
okay.
And the Rothfuss family has just a little bit of a tie to lacrosse, so
Yeah.
I'm sure that they would be
Maybe just a
very,
bit.
very happy to be included as well.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. Okay. Very good. So that matter carries. We'll move on to item C, Town Hall sanitary sewers. So as Mr. Tate is pulling his paperwork out, as the board recalls, when this campus was built, there were no sanitary sewers. This building has been on septic system since 1964, and when it officially opened early 65. Over the years, we have done our due diligence and keeping the system pumped out and what have you. We did have some failures that necessitated adding some additional lines many, many years ago. However, now that sanitary sewers are available, the health department reminds us that if there's availability to connect to sewers, that is what their expectation is versus trying to Band-Aid a septic system. So With that, this also has been on the books, I think dates back to Mark DeFrancesco, who put together the first kind of sketches of that, and then Eric and Mark Valentine kind of picked up from that. And so Eric, I think the town board is looking at the bottom line numbers, which that in itself is scary.
Yes.
With a couple of vendors.
Depending what
The good
column you
news,
look
I was
at.
going to say, the good news is
There's
we
a
got a few.
huge range we've seen. in-
Yeah, absolutely. So, Eric,
Sure.
if you would kind of go over and give us an update.
Yep. Sure. So as Tony mentioned, this building is currently on septic as part of the kind of sewer extension that we did running down Jackson. We made accommodations for a lateral with the idea that this building could tie into it. So the closest connection point is to run out the west side of the building down Columbus Crossing and tie in just along Jackson Road. We kind of looked at doing just a lateral for the building versus doing a main, which with some manholes, which would allow us, future growth and possibility to tie into it with additional buildings or bathrooms within the park. That's kind of what we decided to go through with. So Mark and I put the bid specifications together for this, put it out, and as you see, there was quite a range. The low bid came in by Genesee Valley Construction, just over $74,000. That is actually in line with, as developments come in through town and we've looked at their letter of credit and actually what the developer's cost is to what they're claiming that they can put it in for, and reviewing those, that is in line with that. I know some of the other companies are busy with a lot of work, so their numbers are artificially inflated a little bit, knowing that if they're going to need to dedicate themselves to this, they're going to need to hire additional people, equipment, and want to make some money on it. The high one, I think that there was a typo within their number. Their price per foot of sewers installed, if it were 83 instead of 830, it would put it more in line. He'd still be higher, but that's,
But a little
it
bit
still
more in line.
wouldn't make the,
That's the only.
wouldn't make a difference.
Right, that's the
So,
only item that really jumped out from them. If you take a look at the per unit cost across the board, theirs is, that one is just.
They're in line with most others. I think they've got
Five
a
or six
typo and
times
didn't
higher.
catch it within their
I was gonna say,
Excel
but I
sheet.
mean, they put those numbers together and reviewed it and submitted it that way, so.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
So, I did, knowing that we did have quite the range and not necessarily having familiarity with Genesee Valley Construction myself, I did reach out to the company, asked them for a list of references, of which they sent me. They recently completed a job for the Village of Allegheny. They installed 2,000 feet of both water and sewer mains for the town at depths up to 15 foot deep, which ours, I think the deepest spot, we've got it designed for 10 foot. So they're definitely able to accommodate that. The highway superintendent for the village was extremely happy with all of their work, didn't have any complaints or issues, would be willing to hire him again. I also spoke to a member of the Kinley Corporation that did hire them on in total was a $17 million job, of which they had about $1 million worth of site work, both grading of roads, ponds, water, sewer, and whatnot. So they did a great job on that. They are a smaller company, but they had new equipment, they had the proper shoring, their employees did a great job, and they're trying to get them to bid on additional jobs in the future. Locally, they have also worked for the town of Arundequoit. It was about 5 or 6 years ago, but they did some work doing some sanitary lateral and storm main replacements. After speaking to Bob Kiley, their Commissioner of Public Works, he was happy. He touched base with their sanitation foreman and was happy with the work that the Genesee Valley had done for them, years ago. So I haven't heard anything bad about them. Their number is kind of what I was expecting, as Mark would feel comfortable moving forward with them. the Village of Allegheny, when they put their bid specs out and got a number back from Genesee Valley, it was significantly lower than all of the others, similar to, the same as ours. And they were a little concerned that maybe there was a typo and that they wouldn't be able to fulfill the contract and hold their price. So they actually pulled them in, had a conversation similar to what, we've done with them, and they said, no, that's our price, that's what we can do it for, and they held to it, so.
Good.
It's good extra work that you did, it's helpful.
Great job by Mark and Eric for pulling it together, analyzing it, vetting it out, so really appreciate that, Eric.
Sure.
Okay,
As long as our department
The
heads
royal
and
flush.
don't have any issues that are jumping out from this point, I would move that we move forward with accepting the Genesee Valley bid as stated.
As part of it, we went out and dug 3 test holes between the building and Jackson Road to make sure what depth bedrock was, knowing that it is rather shallow within the town. In one spot, we did hit bedrock at 11 foot, so we were able to actually adjust the design itself and raise the sewers so that they should be well above that and shouldn't have any unexpected costs running into that.
Does it go into the lodge and the restrooms and?
So this will go right out the west side, right to Jackson Road. I believe Dolomite Lodge is tied into the sewers
Yes.
on Jackson Road itself,
How about those restrooms?
but the bathrooms next to it are not.
Will they be?
So they won't be tied in right away, but the idea with running a main is that we could, if we decided in the future, could tie them into that main as well.
Very good.
And running a main, it would provide sewer access to more than just this building.
And septic or sewer?
absolutely is on septic. And the closest sanitary sewers is at the pump station on Atlantic Avenue. That's
They'd
So
they'd have to drill under the road.
we'd have to, yeah. So that topic has come up this week. I know you find that very hard to believe that topic has come up as we go into year 2 and year 3 of the championships, about the opportunity for increased bathrooms and tied into sanitary sewers, so. Okay, seeing no further discussion, it's been moved and seconded. Those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you very much, that carries. You thought we brought Mr. Costello in just for a pretty face, but he's pinch hitting tonight for Mr. Valentine. He's going to take the next 2 items. So the first one is the adoption of the update of the town's design criteria and construction specifications. And Mr. Costello, I know you've been schooled and
I have
have
indeed.
been updated and have all the answers to anything that we will ask.
So you had your public hearing on the 17th. Prior to the 17th, we had notified, we'd sent out packets for 75 contractors and developers for their comment and review. We have to date not received anybody's comments.
And no one showed at the public
And
hearing.
no one showed at the public hearing. Since the public hearing, we met with the supervisor, the town attorney. The town attorney has one minor tweak, which has really nothing to do with technical issues. It's more of a wording issue as it relates to meeting the state code with respect to fire hydrant districts, that kind of thing. It really needs to be a water type district. So he's working on that. It's a minor typo that's got to be cleaned up. We are recommending that unless you have some issues that are outstanding on the document, that if you're happy with it, we would put together a resolution for adoption for the 7th.
I think we vetted this pretty well over the last 6 weeks, and I'm comfortable with where it stands.
Okay. All right, other discussions?
Good.
All right, is that a motion, Mr.
Yes.
Moore, that you're making?
Yes.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded by Paula to move forward then with a resolution to adopt the specifications with the one caveat, the minor item that Mr. Horowitz is looking at as it relates to districts. And he's got that wording that will be plugged in for that resolution not next Wednesday, but on August 2nd. So, all right, seeing no further discussion, those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the matter carries.
We'll get that together for you.
All right, thank you. This brings us to our last action item. It's a sidewalk waiver request at 1867 Jackson Road.
This is property that was actually owned by the Presbyterian Church. It's on old Jackson Road, original Jackson Road. They have subdivided a portion off, the northerly portion of their property to the Heritage Christian Services. They received approval to build a new group home to the rear of the property, subject to conditions. One of the issues is they will own a 20-foot strip out by the road. There are no sidewalks on Jackson Road. The sidewalks that are on Jackson Road are up further north. The new subdivisions that were built back in the 80s and 90s. This has no sidewalks anywhere on this portion of the property, and they're requesting a waiver. We are recommending, the PRC is recommending the waiver, subject to obtaining the easement if we ever need it, and then secondly, requesting that you require them to pay the fee that's necessary for the amount of footage, which is negligible, but it's still there, and it will contribute somewhere else in the town for sidewalks.
Meets our policy, falls kind of in line with that. We get the offsetting dollars to utilize at other locations. And with a big project coming up at Huntington Meadows,
Right.
all those dollars will be needed and necessary. So,
Okay, I move that we waive the sidewalk for 1867 Jackson Road.
Very good.
is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion on the waiving of that sidewalk request? Seeing none, those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The matter carries. Brings us to informational items. This informational item was brought up from held items, and I'll ask, between Mr. Costello and I, we can kind of fill you in as to where we are with this.
Yes, the owner of the property had requested a filling permit to build a berm around the back portion of his property. He has since decided that he's not going to do that. He would probably like to put a fence in, but he even hasn't come back to us with any information regarding the fencing. So we're requesting that the actual application for the filling permit be, and the whole harmlessness associated with it, be taken off the agenda until he comes back with a specific plan for what he wants to do.
Yep, and I would support that. This homeowner has got some other issues that he's working through with DEC and the town courts. And so I think once he finishes all of those items, if in fact there is a need or an interest for anything on his property, he understands that for anything, before he does, he has to get the necessary approvals, either staff approved or appropriate board approved, versus just going off and doing. So, okay, so this is just for removal. And would entertain a motion to remove this from the agenda.
I move that we remove this item from the agenda.
Okay? Second? All right, been moved and seconded. Seeing no further discussion, this item will be removed. Those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that matter carries. This brings us to the end of our agenda, and there being no further business to be brought before the board this evening. The July 24th, 2019 work session stands adjourned at 8:08 p.m. Thank you very much to everyone that participated. Thank you to our future Eagle Scout in the audience for learning a little bit more about local government. And thank you to PCTV for all of their support. And I'll just say that if you've not had a chance to catch a championship game down on the field, tune in Friday, Saturday, and Sunday for one of those games. Some good things. It'll be streamed live here via PCTV. But more importantly, if you're here, you can grab a hot dog and one of the best cheeseburgers in Penfield and catch some great baseball.